And I'm very pleased to be able to welcome my colleague and friend, Rabbi Lori Cohen. Rabbi Cohen is the rabbi of Temple Kol Ami here in Thornhill. I know several of you are members of it. Close to my heart because I was the rabbi of Temple Kol Ami in Thornhill until a couple of months ago. So I'm really excited and pleased to be able to welcome Rabbi Cohen. I'm going to share my screen and we'll say the blessing for study. And then I'll turn things right over to Rabbi Cohen. So if you'd like, is everybody seeing my screen there? Let's say the blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav tivanu la'asok divrei Torah. Blessed is the Eternal, whose mitzvot, whose commandments make us holy, and who commands us to immerse ourselves, to engage ourselves la'asok in words of Torah. Amen. So I'll stop my screen share and I'll turn things right over to Rabbi Lori Cohen.
Okay, well, first of all, Chodesh Tov, everyone. We are starting a new month in the Hebrew calendar of Shvat. It seems to be a month of promise and renewal as we look ahead to Tu B'Shvat. Hopefully the seeds of peace will be sown soon. I also want to thank Rabbi Stryper for inviting me to participate in this series. I wish that I'd been able to participate in more of them and learn from other people, but I'm happy to be here today and to meet you. I'm going to start with just a little bit of a personal story. My husband is from, well, originally Czechoslovakia, so Eastern Europe. And first getting to know him and getting to sort of see the differences in sort of world views and perspectives and that somebody brings from a different country. And he, said one time, he said, well, who said that life is supposed to be happy? And I thought it was an interesting question for me, having been born in Canada, very familiar with Canada and United States and this idea that people have the right to be happy. And he stressed very much that what we should be looking for in life, I know, was sort of moments of happiness, moments of joy, but that it's not an expectation that every day is going to be happy. And that we have to accept life in all of its fullness. So that was sort of the first opportunity I saw to sort of look at life from this slightly different perspective. So I'm going to share some text that I've brought that's kind of a little bit about that theme, and that is, how do you embrace life in all of its fullness, and what do some of our texts teach us? So I've brought one text from Torah, one from Ketuvim, and one from liturgy, and one is a small little story. So, and hopefully we'll have time. I know this is only half an hour, but hopefully we'll have a little bit of time for some discussion or questions as well around them. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So I've called this Embracing Life in All of Its Fullness. And I have this little quote up here that I found: embrace life. It is either pleasuring you, offering you opportunities, or teaching you. Now, just have to find how to go forward with this. Okay, the first text that I've brought is from Devarim, chapter 30. And so first of all, I'll just read it in Hebrew and in English, but then I want to give you my interpretation of this text. So, Ha'idoti b'chem hayom et hashamayim ve'et ha'aretz, ha'chaim ve'hamavet, natati lefanecha habracha v'haklala, uvacharta b'chayim, lema'an techiyeh ata v'zarecha. I call, and so this is one translation of it, I call heaven and earth to witness to you this day. I have placed before you the blessing and the curse. Choose life so that you and your offspring will live. And I want to say that this text is meaningful, and the part that I've underlined, Natati lefanecha habracha v'haklala uvacharta b'chaim, I want to give a little bit of a different perspective. On the one hand, within context, this verse is sort of saying, here's these different ways to live that will be part of rewards and punishments for life. So part of it can be seen in that way. The way I read it is that God has placed before us blessings and curses, and we are to choose life. And I'm looking at specifically the bet for b'chaim, that we are not told just ubacharta chaim, choose life, or b'charta et chaim, but b'chaim. And so having this preposition before the word chaim means that it can be in life, at life, with life. And so I want to say that what God is saying is that there's blessings and the curses, and that if we want to fully embrace life, we're embracing all of it. So that life is not either or, but rather it is both of these. So the question, though, that comes out of this, if this is true and a true understanding, and then, I also want to mention here the Behem, that heaven and earth is not called to witness against us, which is often translated, but that we are witnessing with heaven and earth the truth of this type of life with the blessings and the curses. So the question that comes is, though, how do I cope knowing that there's going to be both blessings and curses? And that is what life consists of. So one is in certain way of managing expectations, and the other is seeing the difficult times as an opportunity for growth. I'm going to share another text. So this is from Ma'ariv Aravim. It is from the evening liturgy, and it comes after the Baruch Hu and before the Shema, and asking whether or not, as part of this text, do blessings and curses just come randomly? Do we know when this is going to happen? Or is it part of the cyclical nature of the way that life is presented to us? And so I'll read this again in the Hebrew and then talk about one part of it. So Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidbaro ma'ariv aravim v'chochma poteach sha'arim u'v'idvuna meshane itim u'machalif et hazmanim u'meseder et ha'kochavim b'mishmaroteim b'rakia kirtzono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshak v'choshak mipnei or. Ma'avir yom mevi laila, u'ma'avdil bein yom u'bein laila, Adonai tzavaot shemo, el chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim. So the translation is there beside this, but it talks about really the predictability of darkness following light and light following darkness. That creation kind of ebbs and flows. So we're saying here, God, you are the creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light. Now, this can be seen in its more literal sense of days and nights, but we can also see it metaphorically as periods in our lives that are darker or lighter. So that, again, something like the blessings and the curses, or the joys and the sorrows. What this text brings is a little bit like Kohelet says, like in the part that we're familiar with, Eit Leled Ve'et Lemut, that there is a time for everything under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die. That there is a certain predictability in things and certain time periods for things. So if in the first text we're told, well, life is going to throw us blessings and curses and we need to embrace all of it, this text is sort of saying, and there's almost like a cyclical nature to these things, that they're going to flow from one to the other, and that we can almost expect that. I will go to the next text. And I'm bringing texts that I was hoping that people are pretty familiar with, so that as we're seeing these sort of in liturgy and that it can spark our thoughts. So this here is Psalm 95. It's part of the song for Shabbat, Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat. So it's sung as part of the Shabbat liturgy, and as well as it is from Ketuvim, the section called Tehillim. So I want to take note of this one here. So Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, Tov l'hodot l'Adonai u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon. It is good to praise God. And then it's got this verse that I've underlined, Lehagid b'boker chasdecha ve'emunatcha b'leilot. That we can tell of God's kindnesses in the morning, but it is faithfulness that we have in the nighttime. And I think this helps me to understand that we can go from sort of this rational knowledge that life does consist of blessings and curses, and that they are going to flow cyclically, one after the other in our life, and we need to embrace it all. And that can be sort of a rational knowledge that we might have, and sort of can accept it. But how do we move sort of into a place of understanding that and being able to live that? And so I think that this comes along to tell us that we have to recognize the limitations of ourselves, of human beings, and that it is really difficult, as it says, to sometimes see the good in things. So when things are good, in the morning, in the light time, in the times that are clear to us, that we can see and feel and experience, then we can be grateful and we can praise God. But during the nighttime, during the darkness, during the difficult moments, how do we cope with those? Because it's not possible to sing God's praises always during those times. It's hard to tell of God's goodness when things are really, really difficult. So this reminds us that in those dark times, in the leilot, in the night times, we have to trust that the goodness is still there. And it's through emunah, it's through our faith that the goodness is there, even if it's hidden away at that moment. So we have to trust in that sort of that sliver of light to know that, as dawn starts again, that a new day and a clearer day will follow.
Lori, there's a couple of comments in the chat, if it's okay.
Okay. I have a hard time following chat as well. And I can stop sharing and look at everybody for a minute.
No, all good. That's why I'm here. If it's okay, I'll just read.
Okay. Otherwise, I'm looking at my screen with the text and I'm just talking away. So yeah, I would love to have some of your comments.
So Susan said, I think this speaks to the non-duality of existing and experience. And then Alfred said, nothing good happens after 2 a.m., which I think was a joke. But if I can just add a quick comment, I really appreciated the notion also of the cyclicalness, that evening blessing, the God rolling light into darkness and darkness into light. I always think of it as like, just know that the sun will come up tomorrow, right? And literally the sun will come up. But I like the idea that this is figurative, that, the sun will come up when we're in these dark moments, and that there reminds me a little bit of the story of King Solomon looking for something that will make happy people sad and sad people happy. And what he finds is a ring that says, this too shall pass. That whatever you're in,
bringing that
it will always pass. And then I'll just read one more comment and then I'll give it back to you. Karen Paikin says we are rarely in full light or full darkness, usually in some combination of the two.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, thank you. Yeah, please, yeah, just speak up. And it's funny that you mentioned that story, Micah, because this is the fourth text that I was going to bring. So I'll go back to sharing the text or my screen here. Okay. All right. So this is a story by the Ben Ish Chai. He was an expert in Kabbalah as well as in Halacha, lived in Baghdad, got the dates up there with his real name, Yosef Chaim, from 1832 to about 1909. And at the age of 25, he was the head of the Jewish community in Baghdad. So he was considered really a brilliant scholar. But I love this story, and I've used it before for Rosh Hashanah because it is a comment on the different sounds that the shofar makes. That sometimes the shofar sounds like it is bursting with praise and loud and calling out, and other times the shofar sounds like it's weeping or crying and having a hard time even just like getting its breath. So if we think about those sounds of the shofar, this was a story that the Ben Ish Chai told about that. So this is, a man had a ring specially made for him that would be true at all times. Upon this ring, he had engraved the words, "This too shall pass." If he were troubled and in pain, he would look at this ring and remember that the suffering would eventually end. This thought comforted him. During times of happiness and comfort, he would gaze at the ring as well. He would realize that his wealth and good fortune could change for the worst in an instant. Good times are not forever. He would recognize that there was no reason to become conceited and haughty over circumstances which were beyond his control and could turn adverse without any warning. This reminded the man that all in his life had to be put into perspective, and that one should live his life neither complacent nor despondent. So as Micah pointed out, this idea, this too shall pass. So again, talking about the cyclical nature of the good times and the bad times, as well as the sort of, how to deal with this a little bit. I see somebody's got their hand up. So I'm going to stop sharing this for a second. Okay. All right, two people with hands up. Okay, so Jean or Anne, I guess.
Anne,
Anne.
I think you can choose also to be positive or negative, happy or sad. And your outlook sometimes determines the course of events in your life. And I think that mixed with hope, the positive and the hope, give you a more fruitful, full life than always looking at the negative. And that's your choice. And I think that's what it's saying. Choose life.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anne. Susan, you have a comment?
Yes. A very wise person once said to me, you can choose to live your life as a tragedy and be miserable, or as a drama and just experience the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. And that really stuck with me. It still sticks with me.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else trying to see hands up? Okay. All right, so I'll just sort of conclude a little bit, and that is like, one, I've tried to stress that we have to balance our expectations for life. that we can't expect that every single day is going to be filled with joy and all good things, that that other days are meant to bring us to an awareness, or maybe be a learning opportunity, a time for growth. Because if you think back maybe over your own lives, I know when I think back over mine, that some of the times that are the most difficult end up being the most meaningful as well. So the times that we really struggled, that we, didn't know if we could get through a certain period, those were the times that really helped us to grow as individuals and to establish, how we were going to make decisions going forward in the future. I can just give you one little anecdote, is when I moved to Israel with my 3 boys, and life was really difficult. We didn't have enough money. I didn't know what school was going to be like. I was going to Hebrew Union College. I didn't know what school my kids were going to go to. We didn't have a place we were going to live. We literally showed up with 8 duffel bags. My kids did not, speak any Hebrew beyond a few words. And we were just being dropped into that situation to sink or swim. And my boys had a difficult time. It was also a difficult year in Israel. It was the beginning of a time of bombings. The bus that my oldest son took to school was bombed twice, that route. So it was a difficult time. But my boys that are now all adults have told me that year was probably the most important year in the way that they developed as human beings, and the relationship that they developed with each other as friends and not just brothers. And so the fact that they were able to sort of, vocalize this after the fact, I think really does show that some of our growth happens during those difficult moments. Bob, you were going to say something.
Yes, well, that anecdote makes me feel a lot better, actually. The text concerned me a little bit because it was so cyclic and regularized, and suggesting that as day and night, well, depending on the season of the year, are sort of equal, you can expect the dawn to come and things to be better. And after all, when we look at the text we're reading now, the Israelites, or soon to be Israelites, spend 400 years in slavery before anything good starts to happen. So it may not be an equal balance.
Yeah, that's true. We don't want to overread into the text, yes, that every single day it's going to change. But so that's a good point. Okay, any other comments? Okay, so just let me ask you a question back then, just what I mentioned at the beginning, and that is that how do we cope? I mean, we heard one of those ways of coping is through just a positive outlook and choosing to be positive. What are some other, ways that you cope with difficult times? Karen.
For me, the most helpful practice that I've cultivated since a major health scare five and a bit years ago is a daily gratitude journal that I spend before I go to sleep at night. I spend a few minutes just reflecting on the day, and even if it's the smallest thing to be grateful for, that it was a sunny day, or something bigger, like something wonderful that happened. I try to focus on something positive that I'm feeling grateful for, and it has made an enormous difference in my life and my outlook on life.
That's wonderful. I certainly know all the research backs that up as a really good coping strategy. And have you been consistent doing it?
Yeah, except with the exception of a couple of months, very challenging months, I have been consistent. And, if I miss a day, I'll write a little bit extra, the next day kind of thing. But I would say, 29 out of 31 days in the month I'm doing it. Yeah,
Okay, no, that's wonderful.
highly recommend it.
Okay, Daniel.
Thanks. I think sometimes we're often unforgiving of ourselves on how we feel. So if when we're experiencing darkness, particularly when that darkness is followed up by more darkness or a deepening of the darkness, we struggle against it as we should. You know, we fight against the dying of the light, essentially. And in that struggle, if we're already experiencing trauma or depression or other factors, then that struggle can drain us and bring us into a deeper sense of those feelings. And I think that sometimes what we must do is give ourselves permission to rest, give ourselves permission to be injured, and give ourselves time to heal, and remind ourselves that it does take time to heal. It's okay to be in a place of healing. It's okay to be in a place where we need to cut ourselves off from other people or whatnot so that we can heal, and so that we can have an opportunity to float back up to the top or rise to the top instead of struggling to the top, which may not always be possible.
Oh, thank you, Daniel. That seems a little bit the way I think of like embracing it all, like embracing it and being allowed to experience and be present in those dark times and the light times. Yeah. Thank you. I like the way you describe it. Bob?
I think another element, and Daniel was bringing this up a bit, that wasn't addressed yet in terms of all of these cyclical situations and simply having hope when there's adversity, is that it's important to act when there's adversity. Now, hopefully in a well thought out way, and not just a violent reaction of a random sort, but I mean, pray as if everything depends upon God and act as if everything depends upon you.
Yes. Thank you. Absolutely. That's very, very important. Yes. Okay, Paula.
So I'm just taking in all of these comments, and it reminds me of Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers. My kids used to watch, my grandkids even watched some of his. And he was always talking about how to face difficult situations, especially those situations over which you have no control. And his advice was, look for the helpers, look for what's happening that might have a positive piece in a very negative situation. And, you know, in my own congregation that I am not leading anymore, when October 7th happened, one of our congregants is actually a reservist who had a choice of whether to go or not. He had family here, so he chose not to go. But people started giving him money. Can you get this money to your unit? Can you get this? So it was an amazing uplift for most of us to realize that there could be good things that can happen even in the most distressing and difficult things. Look for the helpers. Look, you know, when everybody is running away from a fire, the firefighters are running towards it. So I kind of think a lot of what you were talking about reminds us that we have a choice of what to focus on and a choice of how to react.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, it's been wonderful studying with you. I really appreciate your feedback and your comments, and I hope that all of us find a way to cope with these dark days that we are experiencing. And I think that, thank you, Rabbi Streifer, for bringing people together, because that we are each other's helpers by studying together.
I want to thank Rabbi Lori Cohen for this teaching. Helped me to see some texts that I knew very well in a really different way. So I appreciate that quite a lot, and I appreciate this this discussion. One quick announcement, which is if you know a rabbi or teacher, Jewish educator, someone who's knowledgeable that you would love to see teach this group, let me know, because it is such a pleasure learning from different rabbis every week, and would love to welcome your favorite rabbis into our study group as well. So thanks again to Rabbi Lori Cohen, and I look forward to seeing all of you back next week. And early Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you so much.